All right, welcome to Peeps Creek, the cafe where we serve you delightful, slightly intense, but definitely worthwhile conversations. A podcast focused on bringing people together by drinking, listening, and conversing. So grab your favorite drink and let's see what's on today's menu. All right, and on today's menu for the first episode of the year 2021, yes, the first episode of the year, as well as the first episode of Biden's administration, is episode 32. It is Cold Case Killer or Innocent Teenage Girl. Recall from the last episode of season 2, we were continuing on with our discussions of A&E's documentary series called Accused, Innocent or Guilty, right?
Accused,
am I saying it right?
Guilty, or innocent.
Oh, Accused, Guilty, or Innocent, where they discuss various cases dealing with folks in the criminal justice system. And so we are on episode 4 of that series, which is our episode 32, Cold Case Killer or Innocent Teenage Girl. But before we go into the facts of the case, let's do a quick check-in. Denise, what are you drinking on over there at the Café in Virginia Beach?
I am drinking on some water with lemonade. Water with lemon, so lemonade.
Water with lemon with no ice. That water look hot.
It's cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
But, I'm serving the turtles. I'm saving, actually, the turtles. So we purchased
with the metal.
Yep.
Metal straws over there. Yep. That's where the money is going. I see you got a new little microphone over there looking artificial.
We are moving on up. We must be making some money, although I don't see it coming into my check.
It's going to the infrastructure of the organization.
I guess.
You got to invest into the business in order to profit for the individuals involved. We're not Wall Street here. Gotcha. One thing is you need to stop hitting that microphone because
I'm not used to this. I'm used to my white headphones.
All right. And over here at the official cafe, I am also in my mason jar right there. Look at that. Look at that camera. Look at that camera. Boom, boom, boom. Over here drinking some ice water. And notice all that ice up in there.
I was going to say.
Boom, boom, boom.
That is just ice, not water.
Ready for you. Ice water. So as this conversation gets hot and heated, the ice will melt and create more H2O. How about that?
Okay. Moving right on.
All right. So before we go into the episode, let's just say we are also doing some new exciting things. I'm excited about the introduction of our newsletter. The newsletter is going to be called The Shot. We are also changing how often we record and produce and release episodes. Before, we were doing bi-weekly. And so technically I was calling it the Fortnight podcast because fortnight means every 2 weeks. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Fortnight means every 2 weeks, basically. So we are now going to do weekly. So I'm putting some pressure on Miss Denise over there to be prepared to do some topics and do some recordings.
I'm going to need to start getting some money.
We are going to add a section in there called Straight Up No Chaser. And so Straight Up No Chaser is every other week where one of us, two of us, or whoever is involved, it's really just an open, honest discussion about something that is going on. And it's all about being honest, straightforward, to the point. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging, but a good challenge. And so I'm forcing myself to be a little more transparent about things that I'm feeling or I'm experiencing, because ultimately this is what this is about: being vulnerable, being open, having great conversations. So yeah, look out for Straight Up No Chaser. That will be coming out every other week. All right. Are you excited about that?
I am.
Right. So here's what I want to do.
Okay.
Okay, that is a shot. I am taking a shot for the people right now. And let me tell you why I'm taking a shot. I'm taking a shot against those individuals. So recently, just the other day, there was this whole issue with GameStop getting up. There was a group in Reddit who created this momentum, this inertia of folks, regular day folks who decided to change the game on Wall Street and created a process where GameStop technically went up almost like 300 and something points, right? And folks made good money from this. And I would say that there were a lot of high up and mighty folks who normally are on Wall Street making a lot of money all the time. They were really pissed. And I am going to take this shot here and salute to those individuals who changed the game, because oftentimes it requires small folks to come in and make the game change a little differently. I feel like we are so quick to like jump on the bandwagon of all these folks who are already famous, and we promote all this stuff and re-promote these things, and we get pissed when someone else, the small man, come in and make a change. So I am taking a shot to the people who changed the game on Wall Street, made some money, and I wish I was in that Reddit subgroup so I would have been making some money and celebrating because I had a rain in my bank account. So salud, that's how you say it, right, in Espanol?
Salud.
Salud to those folks.
Salud to you.
To them. All right. So let's move on to the topic. So this is episode 32, Cold Case Killer or Innocent Teenage Girl. Denise, you want to tell the people what we're talking about today?
Yes. So this is a crime that occurred in 2009 in the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Good old Chattanooga, Tennessee. I don't know no one from there, but
I don't either.
My family history is in Martin, Tennessee. So that's my connection to Tennessee. But go ahead.
No relation to the case. So
no relation to the case, but Tennessee. I mean, I was trying to, go ahead.
And so this is Angel Bumpass, who is being accused of a crime that occurred in 2009 when she was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. And how old is she now at the time that we see this documentary?
I think this is. If it happened in 2009, this happened in 2017. I don't know. That's 8 years.
8 years. Mm-hmm.
So she was 21, 22?
Somewhere 21, 22 at the time that the documentary is ongoing. The crime occurred when she was allegedly 13, 2009. But we're fast forwarding to 2017 where we are seeing some of the events that are taking place in regards to her criminal case. Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
And so now, again, she's a 21-year-old with 2 kids. And so the episode starts with a 911 call from the wife of the victim. Mm-hmm. And she's on the phone saying something is wrong with him. She's home. My husband is tied up. He's not breathing. He has duct tape. So he was duct taped to a chair. He was duct taped to the chair, right? And he had duct tape also in his nose and mouth.
Yeah, but you're kind of being a little too newscastery for that. I mean, let's talk about how it opened. When it opened, we have a person who is in pure agony.
Do you actually want me to act it out?
Try to reenact it.
Okay,
let's see if you can do it.
Let's see if I can do it.
Let's get this personality together. Come on.
Oh, listen, I always tell my kids I could have been an actress, so I got this.
All right, let me hear.
Okay, let's see.
How does it open?
There's something wrong with my husband.
No, you sound like one of those Korean shows you've been watching. No, that is inaccurate.
Listen, let me tell you something. My Korean people don't do this.
We'll turn back to that. Okay, that woman. It was like 911. She was in stress. She was like, "Somebody, please, something wrong. My husband, help! I came home. My husband tied up. He's not breathing. Help me! Help me!" That's how she sounded.
Listen, I don't think that's important right now. I think
so the people get under. Look, some of these folks are not looking at it; they're just listening to our interpretation of what's going on. So she was in distress. She was like, "Get somebody here."
Obviously, she comes home, finds her husband tied up. Anyone would be in distress unless you really don't care for your husband.
Yeah, but your acting has sucked. I would have fired you immediately. Next actress, please come through the door and rehearse.
Anywho, so again, it starts with a phone call from the wife of the victim, stating that she just found him the way she found him.
He was duct taped to a chair.
Yes.
Fully duct taped.
Right, and he had it in his mouth and his
on
nose.
his mouth and his nose, on his arms were duct taped, his feet were duct taped to a chair. And when the series opened with the phone call from the wife, and let me just be clear, I'm not making light of the fact that someone was a victim of crime. I was just trying to express the sense of urgency that the wife had when she was calling 911, and the tape that was being recorded on that time. By the way, I don't know if you all see this, but we also have a new microphone on this side. This is a Shure microphone. I am coming for all those official like podcasters out there, like the Joe Rogans and like the. Let me just bring this in because like we are. Look at this. And this right here is just a bracelet that says Peeps.
Look, I was
Peeps
like,
Creek.
what?
This is the Peeps Creek bracelet I have on my
Actually,
microphone.
I should do the same and put my Peeps Creek in there.
Exactly. All right. But going back to the episode there. So the victim is a 68-year-old man named Franklin Bonner, who, as Denise said, he was duct taped over. He had duct tape over his nose, over his mouth, causing him to suffocate. So this is a murder, right? And so the victim dies as a result of suffocation due to the fact that the duct tape was over his mouth, over his nose. And so he was bound to the chair, and the case went cold. This happened in 2009. And so how did this case come into fruition? I mean, was the Chattanooga police like out here seriously investigating this? How did we get to the point in 2017 when we are now in the courtroom with Ms. Angel Bumpass?
Well, I guess we can assume they weren't since it went cold, right? Because had they really been doing their job, it wouldn't have gone cold for 10 years. But it so just happens that she gets a ticket for speeding and she fails to appear to court. So there's a warrant out for her arrest.
Yep.
So they, find her, bring her in, they fingerprint her. And the minute they fingerprint her, they realize that she's wanted in this case back in 2009, in this murder case.
Wow. Is she wanted, or does her fingerprints pop up to show that it appears as if, sorry, I was fixing my light. It appears as if her fingerprints were related to evidence that was picked up at the crime scene.
The second, she was not wanted. It just appears that her fingerprints are fingerprints that were found on the crime scene that happened back in 2009. So, she's going to be brought in for questioning. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, 13. And so keep in mind, people, at the time, we have the 68-year-old victim, and then she was only 13 at the time that this happened. So keep that in mind. Yep. Go ahead. But she, and let's be clear that the crime occurred in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but where she had a failure to appear was where? Actually, they don't indicate whether it was in Tennessee or if it was where she's currently living. But we do know that at the start of the episode, she is no longer living in Chattanooga, Tennessee. In fact, she is no longer residing in the state of Tennessee. She's actually in Kentucky at this time, right? All right. Go ahead.
So the reason why I kind of stopped a little was because I kind of wanted to say what she's being charged with.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's a felony murder with felony murder, aggravated, and robbery.
She's charged with felony murder and aggravated robbery.
There we go.
Right? And maybe they have something in there that says with special circumstances. I don't know if it's this particular episode or not. Okay, so let's just quickly break down what felony murder is. So most people probably have not heard of that concept. That concept stems from common law. Common law, for those of you out there, is where when folks in America, when folks decide to come and migrate to good old America and set foot on the land here in America and take from Native Americans, because basically that's what happened, because they were already here. Okay. But established themselves separate from England, right? The crown. There were certain things that was brought over, and some of those concepts was a legal perspective. And so these are crimes that occurred during common law before the more current system of the legal system that we have in place now, the books that we have, the statutes that we have in place. Now, with respect to felony murder, that is this. It means that in the process of me, in the commission of a crime, that's a felony, that someone dies as a result of that, okay? It doesn't necessarily, or dies during the duration of whatever felony that I'm committing. So let me put this in perspective. It's not that you're necessarily going in with the intent to kill someone. It's not necessarily meant that you are physically doing something to kill someone, right? So let me give you a very clean example. Let's say, for instance, that I decide that I want to do a robbery of this house. I go in, break in and entering, and then I rob someone in the process. The lady comes downstairs. She's older. She has some heart issues. And because she sees an intruder at her house in the middle of the night, she gets scared and she dies of a heart attack. I can be charged for felony murder, even though I personally didn't touch the lady. I personally didn't necessarily cause her to die, but in the process, in the commission of that crime, she dies as a result of that. Then I could be charged with felony murder. So that's basically what happened. So in this sense, whoever robbed Mr. Bonner, and at this point, we know for a fact, because we talked about this case, that Angel Bumpass has been accused of the murder, right? Or at least participating in the murder, felony murder. That he died in the commission of that felony, felony being the robbery, right? Because she's been accused also of aggravated. Is it aggravated robbery?
Mm-hmm. It says I don't know why I put especially, but it says especially aggravated and robbery.
Yeah. And so that is what she's been charged with. So remember, we talked about very early on how he was found, duct taped all around his body, his mouth, his nose. The coroner determined that it was the duct tape that suffocated him and caused his death. Okay, so asphyxiation due to duct tape, and because she was allegedly in the process of a felony, she's been charged with felony murder. Sorry, long explanation, but that's what it is. All right, continue.
And I think it's important to mention the fact that you say robbery because they found the home ransacked. So there were items all, around, however you say it, around the house and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there is a co-defendant, so she's not the only one that's going to be tried for this murder. They have a co-defendant.
Correct. And who was that?
Mallory Vaughn.
Mm-hmm. And how does he become implicated in this?
Well, his lovely cousin, who's apparently in jail,
jailhouse
snitch, says that Mallory confessed to him that he actually killed this person.
Correct. So that is all the evidence. Is there any fingerprints for Mallory?
No.
No fingerprints, right? Now, we'll talk about some of the evidence that was uncovered, but let me make this very clear that this is a robbery and the house was ransacked, right? That means shit was strewn all over the place. Right. And there is no fingerprints on any other evidence in that house that connects Mallory or Angel.
Correct.
Right? So there's no fingerprints on any of the items in the house, any of the home structures, the drawers, the furniture that was strewn about. No fingerprints come back and connect Angel Bumpass to that, right?
Correct.
All right. So what we do find out is that there are certain pieces of evidence that's uncovered and in this crime, the crime scene investigation, and that includes fingerprints on the duct tape, okay? Angel, there were at least 9 other fingerprints. Let's get this out there. 9 other fingerprints on the crime scene, particularly on the duct tape, that are unaccounted for. So we don't know who they belong to. We know they don't belong to Angel.
Right.
We know they don't belong to her co-defendant, Mallory, right? We know that they don't know who those 9 pieces or those 9 fingerprints belong to. What we do know is that there's two exhibits in this trial that are pivotal in regards to Angel Bumpass, and the whole reason that we're talking about Angel Bumpass is Exhibit 14 and Exhibit 18. Exhibit 14 is the fingerprints that is on the leg area of the chair, on the outside of the duct tape, right? That, one of the fingerprints there comes back, matches Angel, right? There's another exhibit, Exhibit 18. That is one of the duct tapes that were taken away from the victim's mouth. But where is that fingerprint in the evidence, Denise?
It's on the sticky side of the duct tape.
Right. So it's important for you all to listen to that. Is on the sticky side of the duct tape, not the outside, not the gray part. Anybody know anything about duct tape? Because I used to use duct tape all the time in Detroit. We use it for everything. We use it to fix antennas. We use it to put on our vehicles when the bumper was down. You understand? When your curtain rod was bent and you ain't had time to go and to Shoppers World, because back then we ain't had no Walmart.
Do you know we have Shoppers World here, right?
Now?
Yes. I go there all the time.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I thought they were closed. No,
they have them in New York and here.
Oh, yeah. So back home, you had that Shoppers World. Shoppers World was closed, or it was, you ain't had time to get there. You couldn't get the jitney, and most of y'all don't even know what a jitney is.
What is that?
A jitney is for folks who ain't have no car, right? And so instead of calling the cab, because the cab, they cost too much, there were folks in the neighborhood who would use their vehicle, almost like Uber and Lyft, but they didn't have the little system. See, this is how Uber and Lyft probably got this idea now. But we used to pay people who were in the neighborhood who would use their car and take it someplace, particularly if you had groceries and you go to the market and then you got these bags and you don't want to walk, you get the jitney because he's out in the parking lot. He's just waiting to pick up someone.
Jitney.
Yeah. So jitney.
Jitney. That must be a Detroit thing.
Yeah. You pay the jitney, you go there. So you use duct tape, you put those curtains up. Mm-hmm. It was all fine. People didn't question it, right? You take all kind of videos, and in the back of the video or back of the picture, you see that duct tape. And ain't nobody saying shit about that because that is commonplace, okay? But when you touch duct tape on the sticky side, you know it is hard to move away from that piece, and so her fingerprints were found on the sticky side on one of the duct tapes, Exhibit 18, that was around the victim's mouth, right?
Yes. Again, let's make it clear in case somebody is just tuning in. The case is about Angel Bumpass, who's being accused of a crime that occurred in 2009 when she was 13 years old.
Yep.
The only evidence they have against her is these fingerprints on that tape. And then they have a co-defendant with her that, mind you, neither Mallory nor her actually know each other. So they don't know who each other is. They've never seen each other, met each other, or whatnot. They have no evidence for Mallory other than the fact that his cousin, who's in jail, snitched and said that Mallory confessed of the murder.
Correct. So. All right. And that's where we are. All right. So, we meet Angel Bumpass. She is currently a mother of two. We don't know how old they are. They're toddlers. They have to be anywhere between
2 to 3, maybe.
2, 3, maybe 4, if that. We don't find their age. We don't find their names. But it does appear as if she's a single mother.
Yes.
Right? And we do find out that the reason she left, or the reasons that she's in Tennessee, is that she left Tennessee and went to Kentucky to live with family friends because her mother is in jail, has been in jail since she was about 6. Her father has never really been a factor in her life, at least as she tells the story. Right. So we only have that. We don't hear from the father, right? Her grandparents, and what we don't know if this is her paternal or maternal grandparents, but we know that her grandparents, she does not have a great relationship. Specifically, she indicates she does not have a good relationship with her grandma. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree. And I'm going to put money out that it's paternal because the grandmother is Shirley Bumpass. So, well, unless she didn't have her dad's last name, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, she seemed African-American to me.
What you trying to say? The father ain't African-American?
No, I would say that it's probably more likely than not maternal. Because Hispanic families tend to take the last name of their father, whether they're there or not.
No, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is that she's Angel Bumpass. The grandmother is Shirley Bumpass. So unless they didn't give her the father's last name, and because he didn't sign a birth certificate or something, and she only has her mother's last name, I'm assuming these are her paternal grandparents.
Meaning her father's?
Yes.
Which is what I'm saying. I don't agree. I think it's her maternal. I think it's her mama.
Well, for the record, guys, we don't know.
Okay,
We're
we
just
don't
over
know
here.
one way or the other. Okay, we just over here speculating. But Hispanic families tend to give their last name
That's right.
from the father because they think it's important. What have you? Black people
We need
ain't
both.
doing that.
We need both. We need our
Well,
father and mother last name.
Black
That's
folks ain't
how our
doing
birth
that.
certificate is, and that's how our kids will be too.
Ma'am, let me just say the circumstantial evidence tells me that it's the mother's parents because she said her father was never in the picture. So we ain't giving him no shine, no light by giving her the last name. Okay, move it on. They ain't got nothing to do with the case.
Because this got nothing to do with the case.
All right. So she lives in Kentucky. We find out she has to drive 300 miles in order to meet her lawyer to discuss the case because the case is still being held in Tennessee. What we also find out is that they're charging her with felony murder, aggravated robbery. But even though the crime occurred when she was 13, they are charging her as an adult.
Right.
Okay. And go ahead.
I was just going to say the fact that this case had caused her to lose her job and apparently lose the apartment that she was in as well. So not only is she having to drive to these attorneys that are so far away, her income is really tight right now because she lost the job and the house.
Right. So she lost the apartment because of the allegations. And keep in mind, she was not convicted. It was just allegations at the time. But she lost apartments because of that housing. She lost jobs as a result of that. And she has to drive 4 hours one way to go and talk to her lawyers, to prepare for her case. This isn't just going for the trial, like she is driving to go and prepare for her case. Okay. So we get to scenes, we meet her lawyers. There are two lawyers. I don't know if they're public defenders. I don't think so because they are in, it looks like a private office. There's two individuals. There's a female, there's a male. I didn't catch their names because quite frankly, go ahead.
Andrea Hayduk and Garth Bass and the name of we don't even want to say the name. They don't even deserve that shit. I'm sorry.
Exactly. I don't even know why you're going into the names. Okay. So we meet them, and what we find out is that Angel says, first of all, Mallory, who? Because I've never heard of Mallory. Right. I've never seen him, never heard of him, never met him day in my life.
She doesn't say it like that, guys. He's just exaggerating.
Okay, but basically, like, who the fuck is this guy? I've never seen this guy. Never heard of him. We don't hang in the same circles. We ain't got the same friends.
She sounded as a very smart young lady.
She was, but she was very clear that she had no connection with this person and she never met him. Okay. The victim, she's very clear. She's never been in this house. Right. She's never seen the house. She does not know the victim. She looked at some of the crime scene pictures. We see her in the office with her attorneys, and she says there's absolutely, I've never been here. I've never seen this place. And her attorneys are asking her and telling her about the evidence that's against her, these two fingerprints. And basically what they want to know is, well, how did your fingerprints get there?
Yeah.
And she says, I don't know. Right? That is the extent of her understanding about this crime. Right? And so let me ask this question. When you saw her, Denise, did you get the sense that she was like telling the truth about it or what?
No, since the beginning, since I started, I'm a person that the kids
turn that phone off, please.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The kids will tell you. I tend to immediately look at someone's eyes just because I tend to want to see, are you being honest with me or not?
Because she thinks she's some kind of witch doctor.
Exactly. I think I'm a witch. So, that's the first thing I started looking, only because I felt like, wow, you were 13 years old. Could you have the mind to even do a crime like that, So it's not that I looked at her and immediately felt that she had done the crime. I just felt she was hiding certain things. Like she just wasn't being truthful about, certain things that were being mentioned. So
like what? Like give an example. Like what did you think that she was hiding? You think she knew more about the crime than what she led on?
Yes. I think that she knew something.
Do you think she was involved?
I don't think she was involved, but do I think she knows something about this crime? I do. I don't think she lied when she said, I don't know who Mallory is. I think she was being very truthful when it came to that because her body language said it. I don't know who he is, and it wasn't like she was.
Because you're an investigator, you
Yes.
do all this for a
No,
living.
I'm a witch. Don't forget that.
Right.
But and I don't think she was not being truthful either when she said, I didn't know that house. Again, it's a 13-year-old. We don't really be thinking of knowing this 68-year-old man. Why would I even know this 68-year-old man? So I
Right.
don't think she was not being truthful about that, but there was certain her body language at times just told me like she knows more, and I don't understand why she's not being truthful because this can help her case, like just say everything because you have 2 kids you need to think of. So that's how I felt at times, looking at her body language, looking at her facial expressions, just looking at how she would answer certain questions and whatever.
Okay. So, but what we do know is that what she tells her lawyers is that she does not know the co-defendant.
Right.
She does not know the victim. She does not know
The house.
at all. And so she says all that. Now, here's what we do know at this particular point is that what she says, excuse me, sorry. What she says is that was Dave Young coming to fill my water, but I don't know.
The cat must have really loved
I don't
to
know if
see
that was
him.
the cat or his friends on FaceTime. Moving
That
on.
was the cat.
Oh, but what we do know is that her fingerprints are there.
Right.
Okay, we get that. We have 2 fingerprints that's in the crime scene. Now, she goes on, she starts talking to her lawyers, and basically what she asks her lawyers at one particular point when she comes in, and she was like, I want to know what your defense is.
Right.
Like, what's the defense of this case? Now, and what her lawyer says is that we're not putting on an affirmative defense. So for those of you who don't know what an affirmative defense is, that means that you are saying that there was justification or a reason, for the crime or for the action. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if she was saying, I was in fear of my life and so I had to kill him, that's self-defense. That's an affirmative defense, right? Or an affirmative defense is, I wasn't there, I have an alibi. Right? That means that the affirmative defense is you have the wrong person. I couldn't have been there. There's no way I could have done the crime. So what her lawyers is saying is that we don't have any of that. We're not saying any of that. All we're saying is that there is a justification, and that justification is that there is a reason why your fingerprints are there, but is not related to the crime, basically, is what I get. Do you disagree with that assessment?
No.
All right. So, but here is the kicker, people. So we've been doing a lot of talking about this case, but here's the kicker on this case, okay? When the crime was investigated in 2009, right around the time it was happening. Now, who?
My youngest.
Dorian. Oh, okay. Not connected to gays people. All right. But when the case was initially investigated around the time where the crime occurred. So this is when stuff was fresh. Who was the prime suspect at that time?
Angel's grandmother, Shirley Bumpass.
Angel's mother freaking grandma, Shirley Bumpass. Okay. And what made her the prime suspect at that time?
Well, the police that was investigating the crime, I guess when they came to the crime scene and got his
Stop
phone.
hitting the microphone.
I'm so sorry. I was actually trying to get my cover out of there. So when the police was at the crime scene and I guess they were going through stuff and whatnot, they got his phone. They got Mr. Bonner's phone, and they seen that the last call that was on the phone was to Shirley Bumpass. So they contact her, and she claims that at that time, back in 2009 when they were investigating it, that she had communicated with him because they were doing a transaction of I guess he was selling her.
Wait, did she say transaction like this is some kind of contract? Like she was going in to do?
Yeah, they were doing a transaction. Ain't that what happens when you do that? It's a transaction.
Yeah, she was going to sell, apparently going to get marijuana,
from him.
buy marijuana from Mr. Bonner. Yeah, this is ladies and gentlemen, this is before I know Obama was in office in 2008, but this was before I think the Department of Justice issued that memo that says, look, we can't tell you that marijuana is legal. Okay, but what we can tell you is that from a federal level, we ain't prosecuting it. Okay, but state still was able to do whatever they wanted to do. All right, go ahead.
So I guess it's important to mention the fact that Shirley knew, which again, Shirley is the grandmother. She knew the Bonners, right? She knew the
And how?
husband because her husband, which is Angel's grandfather, worked at their house as a maintenance person. So he would help
Okay, wait.
them.
Stop. I think people need to understand this connection. Okay,
The
2009.
handyman.
Shirley Bumpass, who's the grandma, was the last phone call
That
to the
Franklin
victim.
did. Or got.
And at the time, she says that she contacted him for marijuana. I think
You
it's a
got it.
marijuana. Okay. The crime scene involves a robbery.
An attempted robbery, yes.
No, not no attempted robbery. It was a robbery because there was stuff all strewn apart and all that. That was one of the charges, right?
I know it don't mention. Okay, so
It didn't say attempted robbery. It
No,
says
my question is-
aggravated robbery.
but
If it was an attempted robbery, that would be the charge. It was not attempted
Mr.
robbery.
Lawyer, can you shut
Yes.
up for a minute so I can ask my question? My
Yeah,
question is, I'm assuming they say aggravated because of the fact that someone got murdered. Is that why it's called aggravated robbery?
Aggravated robbery doesn't necessarily mean that the reason. Remember that someone was murdered. That got the felony murder.
Okay, so what's
Aggravated robbery means that there is something that occurred during the commission of that crime that elevated it to a more egregious state. So let's say that aggravated robbery could be that I flashed a gun. Instead of just coming to you and say, give me your motherfucking money, I show you a gun, right? Because I show you the gun, I brandish a weapon that would then more likely than not elevate it to aggravated robbery. So in this sense, because obviously he was tied up in the chair with the duct tape and all of that, that made it from a normal robbery of just going and take to aggravated to the sense that something was involved where there was something that elevated that from a normal robbery to an aggravated robbery. And so while we don't know what the prosecution was thinking, I think the evidence, at least as presented on the documentary, shows that because he was duct taped to the chair, obviously he was held hostage, right? And so therefore that got that to the level of being aggravated.
Yeah, I only said attempted because they really don't go into details as to.
Yeah,
was
but
there
it wasn't
something
charged.
missing?
You can't say because you'll be misleading the people. Okay.
Okay, Mr.
The
Lawyer.
charge was not attempted robbery. The charge
No, I
was
never
aggravated robbery.
I never said that was a charge. I was clear when I said the charge was felony murder, especially aggravated something. But I said attempted robbery because throughout the whole episode, they don't mention was anything, taken. I actually don't. I'm not a lawyer. But since you mentioned what the prosecution, were alleging and whatnot, or what you thought the prosecution, because they didn't mention that either. But it is important to detail the fact that the crime actually happened between 2 to 4 p.m.
Okay, and why is it okay? So let's talk about some of the evidence. I think you get into a important part, right? So we mentioned that the grandmom was the prime suspect at that time. We don't know why she wasn't arrested. We don't know why that investigation faltered. We don't know what happened, okay? The documentary doesn't do a very good job of that, and I think that's something that it should have did, particularly with this particular case. But putting that aside, because I'm not an executive producer or a producer,
Right.
except for this show here.
Or
Pete's
the
Creek.
lawyer in the case and whatnot. But
All right. So, yes, true to that. So we then find out as they being the defense is preparing for Angel Bumpass' defense, they talk about the fact that at the time she was allegedly in school, right? And where she lived, she didn't have a vehicle, and neither did Mallory.
I will hope
right?
not. She's 13 years old.
Exactly. And so the only way that she could get to the crime scene was to be dropped off from the school bus and then walk to the crime, which will be the crime scene, which would be a 45-minute walk, right? And that will only give her 15 minutes to tie this person up with duct tape. Now, overpower this man
Right.
who is 68 and she's 13.
Right.
Overpower this man, wrap him completely up in duct tape, basically, put it over his mouth, throw everything in the house away, right? And by the way, not get fingerprints on anything else in the house but the duct tape,
Right.
because that's as a criminal, that's what I really want to do, is just get my fingerprints all on that duct tape, right? And be out, and no one sees her. Like, in order for her to do the crime, she then walks out the house and walks freely down the street without there being any witnesses pinpointing her or placing her at the scene of the crime.
And
so,
not just her, Mallory, because
Mallory,
remember, he's
exactly.
the co-defendant. So
He's the co-defendant,
supposed to have
exactly.
been there with her. So yeah, so that's why that's important to mention.
Exactly. Now, and we see some of the things that the defense does to try to get her defense. And one of the things that they do is that they go and talk to the grandma. Okay. So you want to describe that interaction with the grandmother, who, by the way, in 2009 was the prime suspect. I'm going to keep saying that. Go ahead.
Well, the grandma was a bitch. She had an attitude since she saw them coming.
The grandmother was a bitch. That's not a legal term, people. That is Denise's
my
personal opinion about it.
And the lawyer was, I'm not going to say the word, but she was scared of her because she was the entire time like, so, Miss Shirley, so if we call you to the stand, bitch, nah. Miss Shirley, you were the last fucking person that he called. But anyhow, so she now denies having any contact with the victim. So
she denies having the conversation with the police about it.
She doesn't even remember saying that they were doing a transaction or whatever you want to call it.
Right. And she disavows any knowledge of the telephone number that she had at that time.
Oh, yeah. She doesn't even know. She's had so many numbers that she just
has
doesn't know.
so many numbers. There's absolutely no way that I can remember that number. And I'm thinking, and the thing about, the defense is just like, okay, no. And I would have been like, first of all, before I went to her, I would have try to pull those records. Okay, let's try to connect these numbers. Let's do some research. Let's go back and try to figure out whether or not she had this telephone number. How did the police get this telephone number? Obviously, they knew at some point. And I would have put in her face, okay, well, we see that this is the telephone number. We see that you called him last. So tell me, how is it that you called him last and you don't remember? Why would you have called him? Why would you have any reason to communicate with this guy? Because she made it appear as if she didn't have any kind of relationship with the deceased, right?
Listen, that lawyer would not have done that. That lawyer went in there scared because she already knew the history with the grandmother. So she said it. You know, she already knew that the grandmother was going to put some pushback and whatnot. She even said about debating on putting her up because it was going to come out as if she was a liar. Lady, you got to be worried about who you're trying to defend than worried
Angel.
about the grandmother. Who cares about the
Angel.
grandmother?
Yeah, I don't really care about the familial relationship.
Right.
Like, I'm not, you didn't hire me to represent your family. You hired me to represent you in this particular crime. Like, I would have been all up on that. Like, okay,
And
let's
I've been
talk
a
about
lawyer,
this.
me too.
Did you smoke marijuana? Did you understand the victim to be a pusher or the drug or the marijuana? I don't want to call him a drug, but whatever. Did he sell it? Did you have interaction? How often did you go to the house? Did you have any reason to go there? Like, you need to ask these questions. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but you have a person who can give you absolutely nothing as to why she wasn't there, other than the fact that she says, I've never seen the victim, I've never seen the house, I know nothing about this co-defendant. That's what she says, right? Angel, basically.
Yep.
So if that's what you're working with, you need to be trying to defend this case. And part of that is doing your due diligence, doing your research to try to figure out who should be on trial other than my client.
Right. Even if that other person that's going to be implicated is a family member of who I'm trying to defend. At this point, I don't care. At this point, they're not even family members. I need to defend this person, and I need to make sure that I get her not guilty. But she goes in there, she's like, the lawyer, the state has evidence that you were the last person who spoke to him. If they call you to testify, what will you say? The grandmother was like, that I wouldn't know that number.
Exactly.
And she did it like that too, that I wouldn't know that number.
And so that is the gist of it. She talks to the grandfather, and the grandfather says,
really nice gentleman.
Very nice guy.
Yes.
He was a handyman of the decedent. And so he basically says, she asked him, is there any reason that Angel's fingerprint would be on the gray tape, the duct tape? And he basically says, yes, this was my work area where they were standing, which was the garage. And so oftentimes what would happen is that when Angel came as a toddler or as a kid, he would have her play. He would take pieces of the duct tape, roll it back, give it to her to play with, basically.
Right.
And so obviously that is a justification as to why her fingerprints would be on the duct tape. So what we do know is, and this is another aspect of this case that really irritated me about the defense, is that what we do know is that roll of duct tape originated in that house.
Right, which is again the grandparents, Angel's
Which is again the
grandparents.
Angel's grandparents. We don't have any indication that Angel had any kind of record as a kid.
No.
We know her family has a history of all kind of records. Her mom's in jail since she was 6, gonna be there for God knows how long.
Forever.
Because she done stole the deputy's gun and shot the deputy in the face, right?
She was all over the news.
All over the news. We know the grandmother herself has her own record. Right, we know that her brothers are at least one of her brothers is in jail for something. We don't know why. She has an uncle that's in jail. Her family is known to be in jail and in the system, so we know that. But what we do know is that there was no evidence that Angel was involved in any kind of criminal activity, and that is something that was not brought out at the trial. Like you should be trying to humanize your client, I think, at the trial, but you don't do that. She didn't do that, which was problematic, I think, in this particular case. But putting that aside, so that is a justification for the duct tape. Did you believe that? Was that something you believe about the duct tape?
I do because, again, like we mentioned before we even mentioned that the grandfather said that, duct tape was something that was used in many households and as an item at times to just, listen, I need you to just do something and leave me alone. Here's this duct tape, because we used to play with it and we used to, like you said, use it to fix things. So he was a maintenance guy. So if he was repairing plumbing or doing stuff, more than likely he was using that duct tape that Angel was using, while she was in the garage with him. So yeah, I believe that is a possibility.
All right, so we get that, and so that is ultimately what the defense runs with, and right, basically. All right, so we get to the trial.
But before the trial, doesn't the defense try to present the new evidence with the brothers?
Well, they don't try to present it. Okay, let's back up. So the prosecution presents new evidence that is uncovered during the time before Angel's trial, and it's a telephone call that's been recorded by the brothers, Angel's brothers. Okay, one is in jail at least, I think, as I understand it, and the other one is not. Right. Because I don't know how two jailmates would phone each other.
No, I think he was just visiting him.
Yeah, it was a phone call. So, and it's recorded. So when you are just FYI, people in jail or going through the system, most jails record every phone call. Okay, just FYI. All right. So putting that aside, there was a phone call that was recorded.
You want to reenact it?
I am. Okay. And so the phone call goes like this, okay, between two brothers. And it was like, hey, you heard about Angel?
Right.
Like she wrapped up in that, and they said she's wrapped up in murder. And Rob was like, nah, first of all, how do you not know about your own sister? That goes to show that this family breakdown is a problem, okay? Yeah, and he was like, yeah, and it was in 2009. She was 13.
Well,
think about it.
He said it was 9 years ago. He didn't say the
9 years ago. Okay, 9 years ago, she was 13. Think about it. And I'm like,
yeah, but the other one, the one in jail, said,
yeah. Now, we don't know anything about that. We don't know what happens because the defense, at least as we see it, the defense didn't do anything to investigate it. Nope. Like, I would have contacted the brother who was on the phone. I would have tried to go and visit the brother that was in jail.
Me too.
What does this phone call mean? Tell me, what were you all discussing? I understand there's some problems in the family, as I understand it. You all may not have the best relationship, but tell me if this is something that can help your sister. Mm-hmm. Tell me. You don't have to be a snitch, right? But tell me, what is it? Do you think she did this? Are you aware of anything that would connect her to it? Like, and we get nothing.
Yeah, they don't say anything. All they do is go to Angel and ask her, does she know what they could have been talking in the conversation?
Exactly.
And that's where I felt that she wasn't being truthful, because she says she has no idea what they're talking about. I don't know. The way she said it to me was like, you do know.
Well, so let me just say this. I don't know. I know that there was tendencies to look at her and think that she was misleading or hiding something. But I think there's other layers to that. I think that there's trauma that she has experienced since she was little, and part of her just decided to shut down anything relating to her family. And so maybe years ago, if they would have came and talked to her, maybe something would have pained her memory. But sometimes when we go through things, we shut those things down as if they never happened. And so I don't know if she wasn't being truthful, or was this truly aspect of trauma showing up in the sense that it just shut down. Like, I mean, I know you've seen some things where people have to go and get hypnotized in order to remember things that happened in their life. And so this could have been an example of that. I mean, she left at 13. Like, who leaves at 13 and just go live with some, I'm not going to say randoms, but they're not family members, because your breakdown with your grandma is so bad. It could have been that she saw something, knew of something that happened involving her grandparents or her grandma, right? And she left as a result of that. Or she was scared. Or maybe her grandma said something to her. Or maybe there's some threats to her daughters. I don't know.
I respect your opinion, but again, like I said, I felt that there were times when she was not being truthful, and this is one of the times. I also felt when the defense lawyer talked to her about the grandmother and asked her, because she asked her at one point, do you think your grandmother is involved? I also felt that at that moment, she just was not being truthful. That's my personal opinion. That is Denise's personal opinion.
And you are entitled to that.
I know I am. So moving right on to the trial.
Moving right on to the trial. Let's go. All right. So we get to the trial. The grandma is called for the prosecution. The wife of the victim is called, of course. And the grandmother is asked. I think she is asked about the phone call. Mm-hmm. She disavows any knowledge about the phone call. She disavows, basically having anything to do with marijuana. She disavows any of that. The defense, I think they question her. They ask them some kind of softball question, and that's it. And she's let go. Right now, let me just tell you, if that was me, she would be on. Look, my client might be the one who's the defendant right here. But I'm gonna tell you right now, through my questioning, the jury is gonna know that I suspect you, boo. You. And
she would. I would have said that had they actually done that, Shirley would have gotten so pissed that her true colors would have came out.
Exactly. Like, you need to. This wasn't a family that was close knit. Mm-hmm. So protecting that bond or protecting those two didn't matter. And at the end of the day, who cares if Shirley came off as a liar? Because I didn't believe her. I wouldn't have believed her as a defense team. When I'm going and talking to her about the phone call, like, you were the prime suspect. Right. Obviously, they had something. So your disavowalment for that is just the fact that you don't remember the number. Like, get the fuck out of here, please. Like, let's get real with this. And so I would have put her on trial with my questions. Period. Point blank. The end. Okay. You were identified as the prime suspect in 2009. Is that right? Correct. All right. You know that there is evidence to show and that you advised the police at that particular time that you had a phone call with the decedent prior to his demise. Is that right? Yes.
Do you have the evidence?
Your husband had access to this house because he was the handyman. Is that right?
No.
That's right. Okay. So, there are connections that you could have made to throw off to the jury. Look, the person who needs to be right here next to me ain't Angel.
Nope.
So you need to look at the fact that the police officers did a shoddy job. They didn't do what they're supposed to do. Had they did their due diligence and investigation, perhaps we would not be wasting taxpayer time and dollars and having you sit in the jury pool to try to convict someone who is obviously innocent.
Right.
Like, let's get to it, boo. Like, yeah.
And did we mention that they were trying both of them together?
Yeah, no, we didn't. But yes, they both were tried together, Mallory and Angel, at the same trial, the same jury, not even two different juries, same jury trying both of them on different evidence. Like, there's no way in hell as a lawyer that I wouldn't be fighting like tooth and nail to get a segregated child. There's absolutely no way that I would not be doing it. Now, we don't know whether that occurred because, again, they don't mention it. We only get an hour. But it was very clear early on when they started interviewing the defense team that they said that they're going to be tried together. Like, fuck that. Not my client. Like, let's talk about this. And so the defense brings on the only person that they put on trial or is put on the stand is the grandfather. The grandfather gives the story about the tape, how her fingerprints get on there, blah, blah, blah. Angel is like, I want to go on. I want to tell my story. Yeah. And what was your thought process on that?
I said, put her on. If she wants to tell her story, let her. This is a person that at the time of the crime was 13 years old. And now as a 21, 22-year-old, she sounds like, listen, I'm not going to jail for a crime that I did not commit. Put me up there to testify. There's nothing they can say or do that's going to, not make me say my truth. That's what I felt.
Yeah. No, I agree. I as a lawyer, I know there's a lot of things that you have to consider. There's a lot of risk factors that you take when you put your client on the stand, particularly in a criminal defense case. There are a lot of things that you have to think about in that capacity. But I just felt like they had nothing. They had nothing. I mean, we have evidence that your client's fingerprints were on the sticky side of the tape. And the only evidence you present, God bless him. I'm not saying he's a liar. Is the grandfather?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mesh, and you don't do a good job of putting doubt in the jury's mind about who else could have been there. I mean, we don't hear anything about the size of her. We don't hear that she's a 13-year-old. We don't hear any of that, and we would not hear any of that because she didn't go on the stand, and they did not use the grandfather appropriately, and they did not go after the grandma appropriately at just point blank period, the end. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's so many things they could have done. She was in school that day. Go make sure you go to the school records and find out, was she?
Hello, where was she at? Hello, let's do this walk. Let's get an expert up in here to talk about how long it would take. Even if walking at a fast pace, how long it would take. What kind of bus routes were available or not available at the time, which means that they would have had to walk. Okay, let's talk about the cab. Were there any cab companies at that time who said that they actually took her or took Mallory to the crime scene? Like, you don't have anything. You didn't do your due diligence. It frustrates me. I'm sitting there. Look at it. Okay, so we do all this and we hear the verdict. So there's two verdicts, right? There's a verdict for Mallory. Mallory is found what?
Not guilty.
Not guilty. I mean, come on. They bring on his case, the only person they bring to testify is his cousin.
Right. Who wanted a shorter sentence.
Who tried to get a shorter sentence in here. Talking about his own cousin told me he killed the man. Okay, whatever. Putting that aside. That's all the evidence they got. Then we hear Angel's. And what is Angel's verdict?
Guilty.
And she is sentenced to what?
60? Is it 60 years?
60 years in jail.
Heartbreaking.
60 years in jail.
Yep.
Horrible, man.
Horrible.
And she could have been tried, and let's make this clear, even though she's an adult now, because the crime occurred when she was a teenager, she technically could have been tried as a teenager. But the court, for whatever reason, determined that they wanted to try her as an adult. And so that, I think that put her at a disadvantage in and of itself. And I just felt like she should have testified. I think
Yeah,
that
me
there
too.
needed to be a humanistic component placed to that. And quite frankly, I think I would have. I'm not saying they didn't do this, but I think I would have communicated to her that your best option may not be to have a jury of your peers. Your best option might be to do a bench trial, and that means to just let the judge, who should be efficient enough to determine and weigh the evidence, determine if there's sufficient evidence to tie this person to the actual crime, than taking your chances with a jury. And so that kind of would have been my opinion about that. But yeah, so that is that case, cold case killer
we
or
do have
innocent
an
teenage
update.
girl. We do have an update. What's the update?
She filed an appeal,
She did.
which was granted. However, they did not. I guess they set up a trial for it, but it was during COVID.
A hearing.
A hearing.
Not a
I'm
trial.
sorry, and they had to cancel it because of COVID. So they have not been able to set up a new hearing. There is
Yeah.
though campaigns out there to try to help her financially. Because of course the kids and the fees that all this have involved and whatnot. So if you guys
Yeah.
want to Google it or look at it, it's Angel Bumpass, and it's A&E, accused, guilty, or innocent.
All right. So we've been talking for a moment. So that is the episode for today, episode 32, cold case killer or innocent teenage girl, Angel Bumpass. Go and look at that episode. I think it is a good episode.
Me too.
And if you have any teenage kids, it is a great episode to watch with them so that they can see how the smallest things can tie you to the biggest crime or the biggest thing that you will have to face as an adult. So be sure to check us out on Facebook at Peeps Creek Café. You can look us up and see us in action on YouTube at youtube.com/Peeps Creek Podcast. You can hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We do have a new TikTok. We're trying to do a little few things here and there. At Peeps Creek, you see that right there on the video screen. You can send us a text message. You can shoot the shit with us. Tell us you like us, you don't like us, what have you. 202-618-0043. You can send us an email at cafe@peepscreek.com. And visit our website. There are links there, even in our bios for Instagram. And if you want to be so kind, you can go ahead and buy us a coffee. There's an option where you can do some donations. And I want to give a shout out to all those individuals. We see quite a few donations, and I really appreciate that. We are using that to get us some coffees during this process when we are talking and improving the podcast. So I appreciate those individuals who actually supported us that way. And even if you don't support financially, you don't have to. The simplest thing would be to retweet us, repost us, actually go and listen, actually go and look, because every minute, every second matters and account for success, and we're trying to do something positive. And so we appreciate those individuals who actually support us on a regular.
Yes, and if you just want to buy this beautiful co-host coffee and not buy Sean, that's perfectly fine as well. You can just go ahead and do that on the website, www.peepscreek.com.
All right. Make sure that you sign up for the newsletter. We won't spam your inbox. It would be like once a month. We'll send you a quick little inspirational newsletter, very short to the point. But that is the episode today, episode 32. Once again, cold case killer or innocent teenage girl. And until next time, continue to drink, listen, and converse. Peace and love.